whole category of psychiatrists and psychologists that deal only with musicians for the same reason. So stiff competition, quality of the project, depression. So here at some point there's a community, there is the sense of belonging, the pole philosophy sometimes, you know, it's kind of kicks in.
Yeah.
And that is a form of protection.
Welcome yet again to the 145 booth. I am your host, Lydia Ndwiga, and thank you for being with us this far. Thank you for the awesome mental health conversations we've been having around creatives, and they've been fun. Some of them have been very deep. Yeah, but we are learning a lot, and I hope that you guys are learning as well. The crew here loves it, and I'm sure we can all have our own experiences about what we are able to learn and what we are able to do from what we are learning, and I hope that you have the same experience. And if you have, kindly feel free to comment on one of our videos, on one of our reels, on our content. Tell us what you feel about it. Tell us what you're learning. Tell us what you have at the back of your head. Maybe if you have some advice that you can give us that could help here, I hope that you're able to share that with us. So thank you so much for walking this journey with us. If you haven't followed us yet, we are at the 145 booth on all our social media platforms. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, please do. We have amazing content in there at the 145 booth. We are on Spotify as the 145 booth, and I'm hoping that this is a safe space for you where we can just talk about mental health. And I know it's a discussion that is not very, open to all of us, and I hope that even though you're not able to talk about it, you are able to seek professional help. The 145 booth is not a substitute for therapy, and if you need any professional help, kindly feel free to reach out even to us. We have a number of contacts. Yeah, we know people who know people that can help you, right? So yet again, we have an amazing guest in studio with us today, and the conversations that we have before the interview just tells us who these people are, and we are bringing amazing people. That one I can be for sure, and I like that we are being able to be open and honest with our conversations. And as per usual, I don't do a good job at introducing them as well as they can do it. I know who they are, just disclaimer, I know who they are, but I'd prefer if they told us who exactly they are, because I struggle with my own introduction. So let them struggle with their own introduction, right? No? Okay, fine. Yeah. Yeah, so allow me to welcome today's guest, Pietro. Thank you so much for joining us on our show.
Thank you for having me.
So much. Yeah. It takes time for us to be here, and we are very grateful for your time as well. I know we have a lot to do and we are pretty busy, but thank you so much for coming through. Yeah, so maybe you can tell us who you are, what you do, and what you're going to be telling us about mental health today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. When it comes to as a creative, I have the opportunity, the privilege throughout my life to express my creativity in many different ways. I even painted at some point.
Oh wow, okay.
But,
this is new.
Yeah. I kind of am like a poet also. I write poetries. But my main element of creativity has been music. So I'm a pianist. I started playing piano when I was 5. So it was a very, very, very early age. I am a classically trained pianist. So I studied at the Music Academy in Milano, the so-called Conservatory of Music. And then I have had the possibilities to play with many different styles, many different music environment, because I have been around the world for the past 30 years, lived in many countries, and I traveled to as many. So the whole ensemble of experiences, they gave me the opportunity to develop different styles of music, and sometimes also to cross-cut, to fuse my music with music which are completely different from the one that I come from.
Okay. So, all right. So as a musician, if I come and tell you that your music is in the chord progression of 1-4-5, what does that make you feel as a musician? Is it too basic if you had music that is only in 1-4-5, or is it just sufficient for you? Would you rather
that it has... Not sufficient at all. One thing that always inspired me is like a rather sophisticated music approach. So I enjoy, obviously, sometimes we all enjoy at some point in life, some simplicity. But from the music perspective, my inspiration, my driving force has always been my examples. They've always been people that they are more than that. So they foresee and they feel music as something that goes beyond 3 keys. Now, my music as an original artist can be somehow related to a 145. I rather invested in the quality of the sound. I wanted to pass with my album a very simple message or very simple messages. But I wanted my music to be as immediate as possible in a beautiful suit. So something which is not super complicated and at the same time is well dressed. So deep meaning, 145 as you call it, a beautiful tuxedo that dresses up my music. And it took me time because the songs, my 3 songs, I have an EP. They were basically a mix between old materials and new reflections that I am sure everyone had when we were hit by the COVID. But the idea, in general, was to keep it simple.
Oh, nice. I like that we are there. Because the 145 booth, basically, we have this thing. I don't know if it's just a thing with musicians in Kenya or it's all over the world. But if someone tells you that your music is 145, they're basically telling you your music is too basic. And so we chose 145 because for a musician, that means we are going back to the basics of mental health. We're going back to the basics of what being a mentally stable person looks like. And so I love asking this question for every guest because everyone comes with a different answer, and it's very interesting that we don't all have the same answer. So if you are asked what mental health means to you, what does it mean to you? What is mental health in your words?
I think if you ask me, if you shoot like a cold question, as a cold answer, mental health is like the level of your happiness.
I love the answers I'm hearing here.
So, there's no straightforward answer. As there is not one Pietro, one Lydia. So, again, you say your music. If I propose you a simple model or a model of simplicity, how would you react to that? And maybe I would react in different way in different moments. So maybe for a phase of my life, I was the simplicity, but then I needed a sophisticated music experience in order to enrich myself, to evolve as a musician, to evolve as an artist. And that's exactly what happened. But then when I wanted to express general brotherhood, the fact that we are sometimes intimidated by someone who is different from us, or I just wanted to express the need that we need to, at some point in life, to change environment, to change perspective, horizon. I went back to simplicity. So again, the mental health, the questions. In this phase of my life, I would classify someone with no mental health issues if someone who is aware of his own happiness.
Oh, yeah. Oh, nice. I love that answer. You're aware of your own happiness, and sometimes we never really are aware because it needs to come off as usual. You need to be happy. You're either happy or you're sad. And sadness is actually a level of happiness that is way below par. So if you were asked, coming from where you're coming from for the last 40 years of being a musician.
You just said it.
Yeah. How has the mental health space affected your craft? Is there a situation that you can remember that you were not able to create as well as you needed to because you were mentally not in the right space? Is there a time when your craft was actually affected by the state of your mental health?
Yes. Although I have had the privilege of being throughout my life quite a stable person slash musician. But definitely, yeah, you said it you put it very well. The challenge for a creative, for a musician, but in general for a creative, is the anxiety to perform.
Yeah.
You need to perform because you need to make your living, because you need to you want to be on top of your thing. And often as a musician you want to show that music is a real job, because we live in a society, not only in Africa, in Europe, everywhere, where the materialistic approach to life has declassified music as something that is not really a job. It's a classic question when someone asks you, what do you do in life? You know, and you say, I'm a musician. Okay, but yeah, I'm a musician. But what is your real job? You know, so that's always the big question. No? So that puts many musicians, especially those who haven't reached a peak of celebrity, of a local, also at the local, you know, they don't become famous enough to win the struggle linked to economic security. That creates a big stress. And the stress in a musician, it always cross-cuts with the struggle.
Yeah.
So they are not the same thing, but they're always on top of each other. They switch places. Sometimes you are very stressed, but maybe in a positive way, maybe in a, because you have a lot of things to do. So if someone asks you as a musician, how are you doing? I'm a bit stressed. Sometimes you're not stressed at all, in the common exception of the term stress. But then you're not making a penny, no? You're not playing many gigs, and there is a situation which is affecting your market. And if someone asks you the same question, they say, how are you doing? And they say, oh, I'm struggling. You see how in a creative way, in the creative world, the two concepts, they have a very close interplay.
They do. All right. You've mentioned that you've had the privilege of not having to struggle with any mental health issues, right? Or
no, not really. I've been always I always forgave myself, and I always gave myself a chance to be happy.
Because I actually wanted to ask you, how did you get your grounding? And how did you know how to actually get your grounding? Like, how did you even know I need to forgive myself is one of the ways of literally getting to a well mental state. How did you get there?
Well, I think that the first element of emotional stability is self-awareness.
Yeah.
So if you are aware of what's going on, and if you have enough grasp of what can affect you or what cannot affect you, then, you know, I think in that moment it's a good start. Many psychologists, they would not agree with me, included those who take care with creative, but there is a bit of genetic there. So there are people who are more prone than others on. But in my specific case, I think I had a very solid basis. So I had very loving, balanced, attentive parents, loving family, always had a good relationship with my brothers. So it was a very loving, solid, old school environment in my house, which helped. And it's not a guarantee to be all right, but it definitely is something that helped me. Very happy childhood, very good friends. Now, when I approached the music, for me, again, sitting down on a piano, I'm a pianist, sitting down on a piano, playing piano, It's very strange, but even though I never had the necessity, but piano was always a therapy. So the moment that I sat down on my stool, even when I was 6, 7, 8, I was in my element.
Yeah.
If you realize that when you do something and you are in your element, so if you are aware of that, there is little space for sadness.
Yeah.
So I remember being 8, 9 years old, very young child, and playing the piano in my room. It was like a piano room, and then there was a sitting room. You know, I don't come from a rich family. We had like a decent apartment, but nothing. And I remember sitting down and playing the piano and being happy when I was playing. So I never ever associated anything, any unhappiness, to the fact that I was playing music and the fact that I was creating music. So I always had a very good, again, income without becoming rich.
Yeah.
Also, because I always reached out to other musicians. I'm someone who is very flexible as a musician. So probably I never experienced what I was saying before, the struggle. I was rather stressed sometimes because I wanted to make everything done, because I was playing on 5 different music projects.
Yeah.
But I don't think that I ever struggled in my life. Very, very seldom, for very, very short, few days, thinking, overthinking. And I attribute the struggling that I had to the fact that I was detaching myself from my personal philosophy that you should never make things bigger than what they are.
Yeah. Oh, nice. That would, I don't know, if you were to be asked, I'm just very curious. Because a lot of people who probably talk about their mental health challenges comes from a very young age.
Definitely.
It comes from somewhere, like maybe they had a traumatizing event that happened when they were younger. What do you mean by saying that you came from a happy childhood? What did that look like for you?
As you say, you're very good at your job. You've put it very well.
Yeah.
If you have a trauma is not necessarily a source of mental health issues.
Yes.
It becomes that when you don't have the time, the space to grieve, to really to process
Yeah.
the grievance. So I had very few episodes during my childhood that I can call trauma. So the happy childhood is when, as a child, you don't experience traumatic episodes that they undermine your happiness. So I was always waking up happy, and I was happy to go to school, and even happier to come back home and sit on my piano. So that's to answer your questions.
Yeah.
Now, if you ask me, but are you familiar with mental health issues? Of course I am, because I was, even as a child, witness, and nevertheless, and as a musician, I mean, on 40 years you have the possibility to play, quite a long list of musicians. And then I've seen that very often.
Yeah.
And that brings, me back to what we said at the beginning. If I look at myself, I do not take for granted that I never had to experience those moments.
Yeah.
Therefore, I try to grasp my own luck, which is a component of my own happiness.
So it is very easy for you to now see when someone is actually struggling with a mental health issue.
Yes, it is.
How has that been for you throughout your craft? And have you, of course, you've experienced people who are struggling with the same. What are some of the struggles that you have seen with the creatives you work with, especially in the terms of their mental health space?
You mean the signs, or
the signs? Maybe an event that something happened and you're like, oh, okay, now this is happening.
yes?
Yeah.
Well, I can cite obviously an event which has occurred quite a few times with different artists, especially with one, and I never seen anything like that before, and I was quite already developed in the music industry in Italy. I was playing with different artists, and at some point I met the singer, and she struck me as one of the best singers I ever seen, and for various coincidences we couldn't talk, but literally for 2 years I thought that was the best singer that I had met. So I knew who she was. She was relatively famous in the underground, in the area where I was playing. And anyway, I had my project, she has her project. At some point, by complete coincidence, at the dinner we met, and we start talking about the fact that I was at her concerts, and we start collaborating. So I have never seen such a discrepancy between the quality of the artistic material that she represented and her own perception of herself as a singer. So she was struggling even to admit to herself that she was a good singer. And I'm telling you, this girl was like Anastasia. You know Anastasia, the singer?
Yeah.
Same voice, like a white woman with a black voice.
With a black voice.
So for me it was a new, and immediately I knew that in some capacity she needed help, because it's impossible that there is such a difference, such a discrepancy between what you really are and what is your self-perception. So now then collaborating with her, going ahead with our music collaboration, we played together for 3 years, we did a few tours together. I could see how she had developed this incredible sense of insecurity from traumatic experience that she had in the past. So basically she had a family that never encouraged her in her artistic career, that she was dismissing her artistic career. At some point she was dismissing her as a person, because obviously if you're good and people tells you that are good and people wants you to perform, you ended up doing that. But if your family doesn't recognize that as a real thing, they will always undermine. And the undermining is stronger than the reconnaissance, the recognition that you get from external. Because that is your family. These are people. These are supposed to be the people that love you the most, no? So it was interesting. Till to today, she's a very good friend. And her, I don't know if I'm progressing more on the next question, but at some point, her status started to improve after years when she finally realized that she was not bad at all. Actually, that everyone was going after and say, you are an incredible singer, what are you talking about? I recall an episode where we were at the New Year's concert and everything is ready, we have well rehearsed, the summary is like perfectly prepared. There are a lot of people, obviously. There is a big crowd. And in the backstage, she comes to me and she said, I don't know if I can do this. And I said, okay, so let's sit down, let's talk about it. And my question was, what is bothering you? Why? What is that is blocking you? Because she never been blocked. One funny thing that she never been blocked by stage fright, no? So she was always quite, but that specific night, she couldn't do it. And she tried some, mental training that probably she had learned. At some point she said, don't worry, I don't need to talk. I'll do it. And so we do the concert, we play the concert, she sings spectacularly as always. But then a few weeks later, we go out for dinner, and I said, so what happened that day? And he said, I had a very bad New Year's Eve as a child, and the trauma, when I was about to go out, resurfaced. And I couldn't help. There was a big voice telling me inside, you're not good at this, you cannot do this.
It always comes from somewhere. And I know probably the answer might be the same as what you have said before. Being surrounded by, you're whole, if I would say that. And then you're surrounded by people who are struggling with a lot of issues. How do you stay grounded? Because if I am, as much as I try to be grounded at that specific moment, I'm an empath. So I have a way of taking everyone's problems. And even though I feel stable at that point, I will be shaken at some point. So how do you make sure that as a creative who's very self-aware of themselves and who's very aware about how mental health issues might look like, to make sure that that doesn't affect you in your creative world? Or even as you're about to get on stage, like you're not at the back wondering, okay, is my singer okay? Is whoever else I'm working with okay? Like, how do you get yourself grounded to actually continue with your creativity as well as you had rehearsed it?
There is a mix of how you perceive yourself. I think I'm an empath also too. So, but what do I do with that? Do I? And I know that, and I'm very much aware that sometimes you don't have this choice. But then it's like, okay, do I let this situation to harm me, or I try to, because I'm not in the middle of that situation, so I have the luxury maybe, and I choose to reverse this, energy or negative energy in order for me to help the other person.
Yeah.
So it's a choice that, again, is when you are heartbroken. Okay. I imagine when you are broken, everyone think in this room has been heartbroken at some point.
Yeah.
The friends, they come and tell you, no, it's okay, don't worry, time will heal, and find another one, and there is the entire encyclopedia of sentences that friends tell you when you are heartbroken. But you are the one who is in the middle of it. You are the one who's living, that thing. For mental health is exactly the same thing, obviously in a much larger scale. So for the most difficult thing is to understand how you can help this person. For me, it's never been difficult to protect my own, let's say, emotional integrity. But I always found quite complicated to fine tune, also because I'm not a professional, but as a friend.
As a friend.
To actually provide my support. Now, if I answer your question, I don't do anything in particular. Again, if you are aware of your well-being when you are well, then you consider that an asset. An asset that eventually you can put at disposal of those who don't have the same privilege. And that's exactly what I did. So there's no specific voodoo that I do for in order not to be affected. But definitely the love that I have for people. I love people from everywhere and in general. And this attitude, this positive attitude, probably has constituted like kind of a shield. And then allow me also to go out, to reach out and to say, let me know what I can do for you. And that includes also supporting you in finding someone who can help you. Isn't, because when you actually when you are a teenager, you are 20, this is the age where you feel invincible. Say, come on man, I will help you, or I will do this for you. But then there is a moment where you realize that certain people, and many in the creative industry, they need like professional help.
And it's interesting, most of the time we're talking about people supporting us, but we rarely talk about we being a support to other people. Like, we're always looking at what can they do for me, other than thinking of what can I do for them. And I like that you're using the approach for what can I do for them. Having traveled around the world, having worked with different people, having been in different setups, do you think the Kenyan creative has unique issues that are affecting us mentally, or do you think because we are all human, we all have the same issues that we are struggling with as creatives? Or having worked with us, do you feel like the Kenyan creative has unique problems from everyone else around the world?
Yes to both. There is like a hard layer of issues that they are common everywhere. As I said, we said at the beginning, when you are a creative, you don't make enough money, or you are under pressure, because if you are good and you made a successful project, then comes the pressure to make another one. And if you are not inspired, it seems silly, but it's not. If you don't have enough inspiration, and you start convincing yourself that your project B is worse than your project A, then frustration comes, depression. I saw it. I saw it with people coming and say, oh, this is rubbish. I love my first album. This is rubbish. It's not going anywhere. And it was not going anywhere. But maybe not because it was rubbish, but because it was less commercial, for example. It was simplicity, sophisticated. You have a different soul. You are expressing a different part of yourself with project B. With project A, you reached a lot of people. Project A doesn't reach those who are making money with you on your behalf. And with you, they put pressure. So you have pressure and frustration and depression. So that is something that, in my opinion, is like all across the music industry everywhere. I'm talking about music because I know about music, but I think in many other creative professions is the same. So this is something that is very common. When it comes to Kenya, you need to make one consideration about the Kenyan music industry. It's still under development. So it's a music industry which has some successful, especially now, these new kind of pop stars, that they pop stars who pop up. I always say that. So they do not struggle, but I would like to know if they are stressed, or if they self-impose, they are self-stressed, because then, especially in certain music styles, there is also the whole thing with the image. So the maturity of the music business, it's an aspect of the music business in a country that can define the problems. Now, when a music business is not mature enough, there is not enough money.
Yes, there isn't. True.
So there is the same stiff competition that there is elsewhere, but with less money. So the consequence of that is that there are many. But one is that obviously you struggle more unless you are, as I said, like a pop star or whatever. So those who are not pop stars struggle more than elsewhere because of the amount of money which is in circle in the business.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of stress to convince whoever needs to pay you the money that you're good. Because it's not a real business for some people.
Yeah.
So there are those who have music places, those who produce music. Maybe you can be a good musician, maybe you can, but for the rest of the population, you are nobody. So there's a lot of, again, the what saves Kenya are the Kenyans. A Kenyan maybe pretends, but in the end there is some kind of wisdom that kicks in. But I've seen in the US, I have friends who played in the US, they came back and it's impressive. So there is a whole category of psychiatrists and psychologists that deal only with musicians for the same reason. So stiff competition, quality of the project, depression. So here at some point there is a community, there is the sense of belonging, the pole philosophy sometimes, it's kind of kicks in.
Yeah.
And that is a form of protection. But that's what I've seen. Is I think that the Kenya creative industry, the music industry in particular, has little money in comparison to the level of talent that there is.
Yeah.
So, for example, I lived 7 years in Nigeria. I had a big Afrobeat band, so it took me places. It took me to Lagos, festivals. So you meet these guys that they are multi-billionaire now, no? Burna Boy, I met him. I met Davido at the Celebration in Lagos, this big festival. And parenthesis, mental health. The Burna Boy guy he has a big head, he's somewhere it's like on the moon, You meet with Davido, the guy can be here tonight and talk to us like we are talking. He comes from a rich family who was very, he told me, my father was very nice and, I didn't necessarily have to take his business, I could do my own business, my music, went to the US, I came back, I studied and everything. So the guy is super relaxed. Now, there is the same thing. So there is, the money is always for the big names. But the music, the Nigerian music, the Afrobeat, the legacy of Fela Kuti, the legacy of other big artists, Tony Allen, the tradition in reggae that they had during the 70s created so much talent, because in the end of the day it's Africa, it's not Africa. So there's so much talent there that somehow there is more money available. If you want to, if you really make an effort, there is somehow a way to go out there and to make decent money. Maybe you don't become rich, but you live out of music. And this has been part of my projects when I was in Nigeria. What I find here that even if you're good and if you make an effort, you need to work super hard to make a decent income.
Or have a second job.
Which everyone obviously has. And that is something that impacts your well-being. There is a moment, psychologists here will agree with me, that it's not that mental health, the fact that someone has mental health issues, the fact that someone is not doing well, it's not like that visible. It's not that, you know, somebody can be absolutely normal, but can have an internal struggle.
Yeah.
So you will not be able to detect unless you are a professional, unless you know this person speaks out. So what I've seen here, is that at some point there are people that say, "Wow, I am really, really struggling." And although I've been short time, so I'm not it's 1.5 years that I'm in Kenya. So I'm not deep connoisseur of the scene, but that's what I felt. The difference between this country and other countries.
Right. And basically it's a lot to deal with, so which means that there is a need for professional help. So I
think so.
Yeah. Do you feel like we have that insufficiency? Like, do we have enough support when it comes to our mental health issues?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think Kenya has a good number of professionals. The problem of Kenya is the same problem as my country. That if you go to the shrink, you're stigmatized.
Exactly.
So even if I'm struggling, if I'm not doing well, going to the professional in Kenya that are superb psychology. Kenya is a country that produces professionals all across the spectrum, no?
Yeah.
So I don't think the problem is the availability.
The availability
is the culture. In the US, there's an American friend who always tells me the same story. In the US, to go to the psychologist is like going to the orthopedic. You know, if you break an arm, you go to the guy. You know, if you're not doing well, you go to the psychologist. It is not in our culture, in my culture, and I also saw very clearly in Kenya. No, so implicitly you are admitting that you're weak.
Yeah.
And this is another similarity between the Italian society and the Kenyan society. It is not, I would say, nobody wants to show his weakness.
No one. No one wants to see you.
Which is obviously is the first act, is the first step that you need to take in order to be supported. You need to admit and show your weakness, and in order to receive. Otherwise, how can you receive something if you don't show it?
Yeah. And I don't think, maybe, yes, it's okay to admit that you're not okay. It's totally okay to admit you're not okay. But if I would take that back, is it really a weakness in itself, or is it just something that you're struggling with? Because if in the US you go with a broken arm to an orthopedic and you're okay with that, is that a weakness, or is it something that just happened out of it, right?
Yeah, you're right. What is perceived as a weakness? It is not. For me, someone is struggling mentally is just he has a health problem. The fact that he's mental doesn't change anything. You know, is the same as someone who has diabetes or someone who has another kind of health issue. But this is something that I have learned, understood, living the life that I lived, you know, comparing, crossing, cutting with many culture, and also seeing the benefit that you can get when you are capable of sitting down, realize, ask for help.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, it's wow. Okay, that's interesting. And then also just seeing how you're a whole person. Like, I mean, everyone, sometimes when you talk to them, everyone has had that experience that gives them that this shouldn't have happened. But for you, your conversation is towards, I help people realize that this is happening, and so we need to help them. And at the 145 booth, we try as much as possible to create a community where we can actually be a safety net for someone who needs the help. So is there a possibility that we could make you one of our safe spaces?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are you on the socials? How can we find you?
I am on social. Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I have my music profile on Facebook.
Would you like to tell the audience where they can find you, or if they can come watch you play as well?
My Facebook is Pietro Tilli. It's Pietrotilli. So it's an open profile, so it's nothing special because I'm from the old school, so I prefer to play a gig rather than taking pictures. I'm not a pop star, definitely. No, so I'm an old school musician.
Yeah.
Where I can play, yes, I have a band. We have a band in Nairobi. We are now momentarily on a hiatus, but yeah, we play in the main like music places in Nairobi.
Yeah.
What you said is it's very important. So, and I think is a good, I would say, exercise for us to understand that many times we cannot help directly, but we can sensitize the person who needs help to seek for it.
And sometimes it's not taken very well. It's not, but at least you have them at the back of your mind. So as a creative, as a whole person, what would your parting shot look like if you were to talk to someone at home and tell them maybe something that I haven't asked that you would like them to know as a creative and how to deal with a mental health challenge? What would you tell someone as a parting shot?
You see, that is complicated.
Yes, it is.
But what I think is that, my 5 cents is more basic. I definitely encourage everyone to talk. Talking is therapy.
It's therapy in itself.
Even talking to yourself.
Yeah, in front of a mirror.
Mirror, in bed. What I remember learning from this friend, this artist, and it's something that then I applied, in raising my own child. And he's a tennis player, so he plays an individual sport. So an individual sport is one of those that, mental is 90% of the game. In any individual sport, you need to want to win the match or the point. And then I remember applying it, talking is like if you play with someone else and that person makes a mistake in playing a note, in playing a point, if playing double in tennis, or you play in a band and that person during the concert makes a mistake. What would you do? That's the question, not that I was. And Pietro said, Pietro, what would you do? Of course, the nicest answer. What would you do, Lydia? If you now I am the interviewer.
Okay.
So you see.
I think I would cover them up.
Exactly.
Cover them up. Probably do something that will hide that they made a mistake, or kind of encourage them to understand that mistakes are always happening.
Very good.
Yeah.
So see the general picture.
Yeah.
In order to cover up someone, to make them understand, the precondition that you forgive that person.
You forgive that person.
Right?
Yeah.
You support.
You support them.
You encourage.
And encourage them.
So the question is always the same. If you would do that to another person, why don't you do it to yourself?
Oh, nice. Oh, nice. And it's interesting, I've been having that conversation with someone over the last 2 days, and they were saying if you can actually show love to other people and show it very generously, why not do the same for yourself?
Same concept.
Thank you so much, Pietro, for coming by. Thank you so much. This was good, and actually understanding that it's possible to be whole. Most of the time we have this thing for how are you whole? You can't be okay all the time. There must be a problem with you at some point. Yeah, but actually understanding that it's okay to accept that you're whole and to understand that you're well is a good place to be. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving us.
And if I may, I want to really repeat what you said at the beginning. It's a very, very important. I like what you said at the beginning.
Yeah.
We talked about, it's like two people, we are not professional, we're just talking about something. And we express points of view which are not professional points of view. If someone has that necessity, the best thing is to seek professional support.
Yes, the 145 booth is not a substitute for therapy. If you need help, as he said, kindly make sure to seek professional help. Thank you so much for joining us in this episode. Thank you so much, Pietro. This was amazing. Just learning different things from different people. Not only, I'm sure, helps you, but also is helping us as the crew here. So we are very grateful. Thank you for coming by.
Thank you.
And if you haven't followed us, if you haven't seen what we are able to do or all the other episodes we've been able to put up, we are on YouTube at the 145 booth. We are also on Spotify as the 145 booth. Follow us, like, interact with us, tell us what you feel about the episodes, tell us what you'd like us to maybe just talk about if you feel like there's something that we can add to it or to spice it up. So interact with us at the 145 booth, and thank you so much for joining us. I am your host, Lydia Ndwiga, and until next time, see you then.